I'm going to be speaking to Shebear today about her empowerment centers in Africa, and we're going to get down to some detail and find out what's going on there because, of course, she needs more money for that project. And I want to explain and present it to you so you can see what you might be doing with just £5 or $5. It's quite ridiculous how far that can go. But let's see what Shebear has to say in her presentation. She's been so busy supporting these centers. They're essentially like schools, and they're giving children a new kind of education where they didn't have any access at all. This is in Uganda. So here we go. Good morning.
Good morning, or grand risings, I should say.
Yes, this is a new thing, isn't it? Ashley Sage loves to say it. You love to say it. What do you mean by grand rising? I always think that's interesting.
Um, well, rising is sort of like getting up and starting work and so on, and have a good one.
Yeah, okay. Is it like the sun rising? Because that's a good one to
Um,
focus on.
yes, in the morning, yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
The sunrise.
I woke up early this morning at about 4 o'clock and just couldn't go back to sleep again. So I had my breakfast and then went into meditation, and it was wanting only to be yellow golden. It just was like, let's get lots of yellow golden in, because there's a lot of people working on the sun to get busy. So
Yes.
interesting that you use that term. So I've briefly introduced you just a tiny bit, but what I really want to do today is I'd love to drill down into what you're doing and why. Okay, three things. What you're doing out there in Uganda, why it's different from what is on offer there. So if we can get into some of the details of what they're doing, and then, what we can do to support. So those are the three areas. So do you want to just give a quick little overview of what you've been about out there?
Okay, so a lot of my passion is to empower people, and especially the younger generation, because they are our future. They are the people that's going to be looking after the world when we've departed, even though I've decided and I'm not going to die ever. So I'm just gonna lay down and retire or whatever, go into a cave or yeah. And I've had, my background is education, and I done an education studies degree. Doing that, I learned that I don't like the school system. It doesn't suit everyone, because my dissertation was on home educating a child who was ill, and that was basically so I could learn about what I need to do to home educate my child that was ill. And two birds with one stone. I'd done a dissertation and I'd done my research at the same time, so it was useful. So I've always felt that obviously curriculum doesn't look into the social skills. It doesn't look into your everyday skill set and so on. And one of the sayings I used to have from my parents is, "Oh, you'll become an educated idiot."
Mm.
And I didn't really know what that was, because I had been instilled with common sense by my mother and so on. So I was thinking, how could I ever become an educated idiot when I've got all this common sense? And I'm thinking, that's what children need to learn. They need to learn common sense. They need to have life skills. They need to learn about themselves. They need to learn what their passions are. And that will set them up for going forward. And, in this age where it's the rat race and you go into work and you don't like your work, well, then we need to be doing work we do love, because then, as I say, work is my play and play is my work. So I had an opportunity through another project I was with to connect with a lovely lady called Generous, who runs the God's Grace Christian Ministries out in Uganda. And in 2007, she set up a non-governmental school. So that means that, you know, she wasn't really under any rules and regulations and could be more flexible. So she was saying, oh yeah, we just have, you know, we just learn curriculum and they use corporal punishment. I thought, right, we're not having that. So with my background, I've guided them to create what we call empowerment centers. And we're now on our third one.
So that's a beautifully organized description. Thanks so much. And it might be interesting to touch on curriculum as well in a moment if we've got that space and time. But so there you are, you've got a vision and this beautiful background, and you're seeing something which is visionary potentially, but has its limitations, i.e. the corporal punishment, which is obviously a cultural thing, which is being just overlaid, and you saying, hang on a moment, we can look at this very differently. Could you kind of go through the points of how the empowerment centers are different from maybe just even schools in Uganda, or yeah, as a model sort of for learning? That would be really nice for people to be able to see, because I know that your vision is being poured into that, and that could potentially influence other places.
Yes. Well, you know, because of the home education background and home educating my son, I knew that young people learn better if they're doing something they're interested in. You know, and if they have freedom and flexibility to flow, as opposed to in schools, you have this, you have this, you have this, you've got to learn this, you're tested on this, have you got that grade, are you that level, and so on. It's so much pressure for that young person to be under, and it may be a subject they absolutely do not resonate with. You know, and they can't see the point, you know, algebra. What's the point of that? You're not going to go into a supermarket and say 2 cans of XYB and times 3 cans of whatever. It's just not, you know, unless you're going to specialize in sciences, then yeah, bring algebra in, but later on. So it's sort of all around, you know, empowering the child, respecting the child, nurturing the child, you know, picking up, allowing that child the freedom. Obviously, this is the more sort of, you know, ideal, allowing the child the freedom to pick and choose what they want to learn. And I have the background of going into a learning, self-directed learning center, which added to this. And I could see how the children would work together. You'd have 15-year-olds with 8-year-olds, and the 8-year-old would be telling the 15-year-old, you know, these different things and sharing knowledge. And they say that if you can teach someone else what you know, then you know it very well.
We know that from
And
the Takeoff school in Russia, don't we? Anastasia's supported school. So how does that work in the empowerment centers? Are they able to be out of classroom structure, and there's multi-level age grouping and subject grouping, rather than now we're learning English and now we're learning maths? Or how does it practically play out?
I don't know fully the details of the practicalities, but you have groups of children and they're all different ages. But of course, you have children that are all have, you know, may have disabilities and so on. So it was a fact that if a child wasn't learning and that in their peer group, they would then go in with another, you know, a group that was more at their level. And we do actually have a few special needs children. And, you know, Generous says, oh no, she's mad. I said, she's not mad. She's hyperactive. They said, oh, So I'm giving the Ugandan adults there or leaders there the insight that, yeah, there are children with different abilities. They may have had like a birth defect and so on. But we can work with them. And they have a deaf and dumb boy, and he was like, he would just go around holding his bucket, and he didn't want to join in or anything. And they said, oh, should he be on his own? I said, no, he shouldn't be on his own. So firstly, I introduced something called Makaton, which is a hand type language for those children who, don't communicate. And then I said, well, get him to integrate, just let him be with children, do some simple like math. So you can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and yes and no, and so on. And yeah, he's now doing things with the other children and being integrated. It's not a case of every, the child has to fit in the box. No, we're changing that box. Well, it's not a box, it's a flimsy bag to encompass all the abilities of all the different children.
So it sounds, let's see if I can put it into words what I'm feeling here. Because I know you have a vision, because you and I have talked, and people who've watched these videos will know that we've had wonderful discussions about what we believe learning is for. So you've just brushed on the surface. So you're holding this vision proudly, like a beautiful kind of image on the wall, like a big portrait, and reminding them all the time. But what I also get the feeling of is that you're kind of hitting against a very powerful energy, generous, but she's rather held into the box of traditionalism. This is what we do and we must do this, and it's the hive mind we've all been programmed to, isn't it, in
Yes.
education. And sometimes if you go into, say, India or different countries in Africa, you can find it even more severe, because we've become so kind of liberal and wokey that we've mushed it up in the opposite direction, that we're not expecting anything of anyone anymore, almost, in some of our schools here. But that regimented structure is very, very, very instilled. And I can see how that must be quite a challenge. But the amazing thing is that there you are as a guiding principle, and you're able to feed in small pieces of idea. Have you, looking at that kind of rate of change of your ideas, have you been able to see the obstacle, like the corporal punishment, your suggestion, and then their change, their shift? Have you been able to see that in multiple areas?
Yes, we have. Generous says, everyone looks at me and asks me why I'm smiling. And when, she tells them what's happening, then they smile too. But they've found that bringing in the more flexibility, we brought in the alternative subjects, and the teachers loved teaching it, and the children loved being at school, and at the center. And it was the fact that the teachers could use the threat that, if you don't behave and so on, then you won't do the lovely practical subject that you love to do. So that was a deterrent. But she's come back and said to me that the whole school is happy. The teachers want to come. There's people that want to join the organization because they can see the children are so happy, the staff are so happy. But unfortunately, she hasn't got the resources to pay them any decent wages. So whether or not we can get sort of people in voluntary to learn, how to do this and take it off elsewhere, that is another consideration.
Nice idea. Yeah. I mean, it really sounds like you're doing the ground up is you have to change the vibration, don't you, to change the thought. And that's what you're doing.
Yes.
Putting in joy, which is a very high frequency, it cannot help but change things in
Yes.
people's minds. And that's very clever. And that's what most people just can't get because they're so fixed in their boxes. As you know, all the educationalists I'm sure you've worked with, instructors, yeah, it's like, oh yes, it's nice when they're enjoying themselves, but they don't understand that the key is to change the vibrational frequency that you're offering, and from that everything shifts and ripples. So I love that. And that could be a very strong and interesting way to bring in student teachers. That would be a lovely thing. I hope you can get that kind of moving a bit. Can we talk now a little bit about, what £5 could do, what £10 could do in this kind of situation? Because I know you need funds, and it's just for us, English and Americans, mostly my audience, it's weird to think that £5 or £10 can actually do something of meaning.
Yes, well, in the first empowerment center, and again, it all depends what area you're in as to what value we can get from our pound or from our buck, as it were. But people ask me why. I'm just going to take a step back, why I'm doing things for Uganda when I perhaps should be doing things for my own country. Well, I am doing other things as well for the UK, but that's another story. But we have the advantage of the strength of the pound and the dollar against the Ugandan shilling. £5 gets us a lot of Ugandan shillings. Let's say that I can't quote off the top of my head, but £5 is enough to pay for one child for one term to attend. In the
Is that
third,
everything for that one child? £5?
well, that will pay for the wages for the teacher.
Wow.
And we have so many children in a class, so I've divided it down. So one term of teachers' pay. If you say you've got sort of 30 children, it works out about £5 per child will pay that teacher.
And you have 3 terms like the English system, do you, rather than the 2 semesters American system?
Yes,
Yeah.
I believe there's 3 terms. Yes.
So
Yeah.
£15
I don't
would pay for a child's education experience.
for a year.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, for a year.
What could you do
We've
with
had,
£100 if someone gave you £100 or 100, it's about
oh my goodness.
$100? What could you do with that?
Exactly. So let's give you an example. There is in the first empowerment center, there was a nursery block and it needed a roof. So there we just go for primitive. So it's corrugated iron. With £40 was able to buy the roof for that nursery block. In the second empowerment center, we've set up sort of a makeshift structure, but it needs roofing. So Generous has looked at the best thing was tarpaulin. So with £80, we've got 2 lots of tarpaulin to roof that building. And it doesn't really need walls or sides. It just needs somewhere that's sheltered so the children, are in the shade and they are, if it rains, they are kept dry.
Right.
So simple as that. They don't actually need walls on the buildings.
And had they got their own deep water wells there at the empowerment centers, where you've got a well?
Some have to walk miles. That is another issue. The power and the water is a major issue. At the moment, poor Generous had her phone stolen because stealing phones is rife in African countries. So at the moment, we're in totally, what's the word? Discommunicado. if that is that the word?
Yeah, I think it's
But
incommunicado, but I think it might be discommunicado in
incommunicado.
this case. Yeah.
That's it. So we're sort of flying blind. Generous is up there doing her thing, but when she goes, so she's managed to get to the Third Empowerment Center, and there's someone there, she can use their phone and she can message. But in between time, and you know, we take communication so much for granted. But you know, there's places out there, there's no power. There's no signal, of course, because there's no power. So we're sort of, you know, each side is flying a bit blind. You know, we have, when Generous has, you know, got a gadget to use, and, you know, she's got the power and she's got a signal, then we have a mega catch up.
That's really
And
important, isn't it? I mean, you can get a solar powered battery that brings the power back into the battery. You can use the battery to charge it, or you can have I don't know whether the windmills would be a good one, or using, if there is any water, using running water with a small water turbine are amazingly good
turbine,
for
yes.
power. But they are getting
This
cheaper and cheaper, but even so, you need a sustainable power source, don't you? The danger, I think, is that we know that there's so much, you know, child abuse and child trafficking, and you want to be able to make these places resistant to that. And in order
Yes,
to do that, they have to have funds so that they're not taken over by other interests, shall we say, which are, I mean, there are so many
exactly.
nefarious, dark, terrible things happening. So here you are, this little beacon of light, and we're trying to keep it growing like a seedling. I know when I post your work, mostly on Facebook, because that's probably where most of my friends are. The other social media feels very, very distant to me. And I've posted it with this excitement and enjoyment because I know and love and trust you. And this is the only bridge we've really got. We have to know and love and trust the person. I've got 5 people messaging me to pay for their Indian orphanages, and I just have to say thanks so much, but I don't know you, and I'm not going to put money, even if I had it, which I sadly don't at the moment with being a teacher and with the work I do. But I'm not going to put it into a project that maybe there's some sort of nefarious agenda. So I want something somewhere that I can love and trust and know that a tiny bit of money that I've got will do something amazing. And this is a seed
Yes.
setting. You're setting a seed. You're transforming from no corporal punishment. Let's bring in joy. Oh my goodness, what did joy do? Shall we do some more of it? This transformational thing, which is what we all need to do. And that's just, if we can support you in that, that's just wonderful. Is there anything else particularly you would like us to aim for? People, usually these videos, they get seen by about 100 people. Sometimes it's more. It depends how much time I have to throw them around the internet. It may be more because people share them too. But is there anything specific right now you would like to aim towards, or maybe for this Third Empowerment Center?
Well, the Third Empowerment Center is the major challenge. It's a major crossroads. Luckily enough, Generous has manifested some, I think she's got 8 houses they've given her to use.
Wow.
But again, yes, it's the power. There's no power there and there's no water there. So that's a major thing as well. I get messages through saying, there's was it 117 children at this empowerment center, so many at this empowerment center, so many at this empowerment center. She says, Grandma Shebear, you have empowered 330 children. Oh my God, I was in tears. I was in tears. And so this is sort of like, we have done 3 this year. But the first one was established anyway. And it's the case we want to continue on. A lot of my disposable income is going into these empowerment centers, but obviously I've only got so much disposable income. And I am directly, Generous is the founder. So I put money that comes through. We have the Buy Me a Coffee platform. If people want to donate direct, I can give the bank account that I've set aside purely for these donations. Those details can be given out, and then I transfer it directly into the God's Grace Ministries bank account. So I know there's nobody in between taking a cut. And
that's a registered charity, is it?
Yes, it's a registered organization. I don't know if it has charity status out there. I'm not too sure about
But just
their
for people, you know, if you donate to charity here, you can take that off your tax bill, for example. You know, that so it's
because it's abroad, I don't know if that applies.
okay.
But yes, it is a registered company at least. So, you know, I know it goes direct, and Generous says to me, oh, do you want to look at the accounts? I says, no, because the fact that you've offered me to look at the accounts is trust enough that I know it's going to go to the right places. And with this, she's finding the right people, she's attracting the right people. And if there's a problem with a person, we did have one of the teachers decided that because the children were misbehaving, they had to kneel for 30 minutes. And was no, we're not having this. And so the parents are involved with the decisions as well in the empowerment centres. And so he was dismissed instantly. And I says, I hope he realizes now that that's not the way we do it. We do not cause physical and emotional anguish on the child. So yeah, we just need to do more. I'd love to do more. I get frustrated because you know, we want sewing machines. When we done the fashion and design lessons, they didn't have sewing machines. They were actually, they made for Culture Day, they made clothes for toddlers out of old sacks.
Yeah, when
the
we looked at
toddlers
that
loved it.
with Sue, that was sweet, wasn't it? To see, but actually, the irony is it's much better to know how to sew than have a sewing machine, because
Exactly.
mostly you need power and energy. If you can sew, you can create anything, and not only clothes. People, you can do so much if you know how to sew. It is just an invaluable skill, and most people just don't know how to do it. It's like, oh, I don't know how to sew, I don't know how to cook. It's like, really? Well, how are you living?
Exactly.
Useful skills. I wonder, have you put together a document yet, like a pamphlet with the you know, your aims and the way you work? Like, for example, if there is a weekly meeting with the children and the parents, or a monthly meeting, do you have anything like an ethos of the school put together for people who'd be interested?
I do actually. I dictated Generous was giving a talk, and a lot of the parents wanted it to be strict education, like curriculum and so on. So I have a lovely piece of text that I wrote for her, so she can impart to the parents that it's not a conventional school. They weren't so happy about it, but they can now see that their children are coming home joyful, they're wanting to learn, they have passion about learning new things. So yes, we do have that available.
I'd love to put
Not
that in
in a
my text.
pamphlet.
You know, it doesn't matter,
Yes,
but I'd love to put that, you know, in Rumble, you can put essays. So it'd be lovely to put that for people to be able to read it. Of course, we'll put your
yes,
Buy Me a Coffee link. That's the lovely thing. You can buy multiple coffees up to however much you want to with that system.
yes.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
I've actually modified the buy me a coffee. You can say buy me a slice of pizza or buy me a beer, but actually I've changed it into buy me a book.
nice. Yeah. Okay, great, great.
Because even though they're not curriculum, it's still nice to have these, you know, you can get magazines that are educational, you can get small paper-backed, card-backed books that you know, find the cat, find the dog, and so on and so on. So we do need resources, you know, as well as paying teachers and so on, and building the structure. So, you know, I've changed it into buy a book instead of buy
Nice.
me a coffee.
Yeah, because you need stimulus, you need paper, and you need drawing materials, and you need book stories to
Exactly.
read to inspire. So yeah, okay, lovely.
Well, initially they were drawing in the dirt, in the mud on the floor. But they've found in some areas, you know, the soil is very clayey, so they're actually making products and making statues and you know, bending the clay round to make their names and so on. So it's multi-purpose, and it's about using that curiosity. I've got this, how can I use it? This is a natural resource, what could I make out of this?
Yeah.
How could I bring this resource and make it educational?
Or even
Because we
my
can learn
mother
from
was
everything.
my mother was brought up in Kenya, and so they still used the old Durry walls, which were, you know, like our wattle and daub, to build all the buildings.
Yes.
And you can build small children's houses, little houses like that, and then they learn these life skills. You know, you make just smaller bricks for the children out of the clay and the sometimes they use dung, clay, and straw, and you would pound it with your feet and you'd make it. And of course, people pay a fortune to go on courses like that with cob in Britain and elsewhere. But
Yes.
that's an amazing thing. It's just something I'm talking about recently in my latest information too. Construction is such a vital thing for a child, the three-dimensional, which they don't always have in school. They have it at home with their Tinker Toys and Lego here. But actually that
Yes.
need to build is something that is very rarely satisfied. So it's lovely that they've got all of this wide range. Sheba, is there anything you'd like to just finish in on? Because I think it's a good length of time. Then I want to chat with you afterwards, just to hi.
Yeah, basically, you know, instead of going to Starbucks or Costa, where coffee costs a fiver, about that, why not put a smile on child's face? Why not instill some passion into them by just donating that £5 on buy me a coffee or buy me a book in this case? You know, it will make the world of difference. You know, a fiver here buys nothing, but we can make a lot of difference. We can instill joy, we can instill passion to, you know, those future generations who live in the land that a lot of other countries have pilfered from. So let's pay back to help the future generations.
Thank you so much. Thanks. I'm glad that I hope we can get this out to as many people. So anyone watching this, please just share it. It's a lovely, simple, beautiful idea. And it's very rare that we get the chance to support something so simple. Everything is so red taped, bureaucratic, and nightmarish in terms of this authoritarianism we've given our structures. And this is something quite innocent and very, very empowering. So thanks so much, Sheba. Thanks. Right, I'm going to